Allegretti,
Present.
Mr. Diaz,
Here.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
You do have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peppers. It looks like we're gonna have, as the amount was there, well, we have everything in place. Katrina did not confirm, so we'll be pending her. And then, since then we have the suggestion to change the agenda then to introduce our officer, and then we'll move on with the rest. So, recording's on. Please,
Ricardo,
officer. Yes.
as far as if we're moving the agenda, I would also ask to move bullet 9 and 10 or an 8 if we could switch those. Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind. Strike that. I misread that. Never mind. Forget what I said.
All right. You want, we can have the adjournment and then we have comments from everybody. That's okay with me. It's okay, bud. It's a long day. Lieutenant Smizer, I'm not sure yet. I didn't pick it up. Officer Smizer, that will be at least correct. It might not be full. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. I know that there's changes at the police leadership level. So.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Dave Smizer. I am a lieutenant with the Urbana Police Department. I am in my 21st year here at the police department. The majority of my career has been spent in investigations, either as a detective, sergeant up there for a short while. In the past, 2.5 years, I was a lieutenant in charge of the investigations division. Last month, I was reassigned to the patrol division, where I intend to be for hopefully a while. So I know you guys have got a couple of changes or had some revolving door. I think Lieutenant Coker was with you for a little while, and maybe Deputy Chief Searles was with you for a longer period before that. But you will probably be stuck with me for a while. So hopefully I can help you out with what you need on the police department's end. I don't know how much you really want to know more than that, but I'd be definitely willing to.
Well, as we traditionally do with police officers, you can just type in your social security number at the chat level, and we'll be fine with you. No, I mean, moving, and you're welcome to be here as long as you need to. Don't make any promises because you don't know and we don't know, but we'll do our best while you're here.
Sure.
So,
yeah, I'd like to stick around for, at least a few minutes and see what I can do for you. I know that you had asked kind of for a status check on where we're at with open cases and such.
Yeah.
Is that something you want to do now, or do you want to do it in a few minutes, or?
No, I think we this is as open as we can get. So let's talk taser reports, especially where you are on that, and then one of our discussion points will be to try to schedule. I don't know how trained you are on prepping them, but at least to know where we are on what's on your docket. So.
I am not very trained on prepping them. I've got some training. I will do my best to get you what you need.
Mr. Chairman, and I'm sorry, Lieutenant Smizer, before you do that, you've got to follow the agenda, sir, or someone has to make a motion to amend the agenda. We actually should be moving to approve the agenda and then to amend it according to the one printed on the website, just to let you know.
Thank you very much. Yes, so I asked for the change of the agenda, so please someone make that motion.
I move to amend.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Let's do a quick vote.
What are you amending, sir? I didn't hear the full motion, forgive me.
We amend, I asked for a change of the agenda to move Lieutenant Smizer up, and his was 6B.
So you mean taser reports?
Correct.
Okay, 1 second. Okay. So to be clear, we have a motion to move to amend 6B to before the approval of the minutes. Is that what I'm understanding? That's
correct.
On the floor? Okay, who made the motion again? I'm sorry.
You can put that down as me, Lamont, as motion to move 6B to up.
Mr. Allegretti,
Yes.
Mr. Diaz,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So we'll do 6B and we'll talk TASER reports before we move on to the other more procedural stuff. So we can get Lieutenant Smyser. Go ahead now.
Okay, so it would appear as though there are 11 TASER reports that are in various stages. Of those 11, we have one that should be ready for review. There are 7 that are pending court dispositions, so those are not, we're still waiting on those. And there are 3 that, if I'm using the right terminology, I believe I'm going to call them not ready. 2 of those 3 do appear to be ready, but before I would ask to bring them in front of the board, I want to do a little bit more checking. I was looking into them today. They appear to be ready to go. I just want to make sure that all the redactions and everything is done. The third one definitely does need more work done on my part, so I'm going to have to work on that in the coming days as far as redactions and video. So 11 total, 1 that's ready to go, 7 pending court, and 3 that are kind of in between.
Okay. So can we ask you if that one to review and those that may be ready already, that we schedule them for our next meeting, which is in two months from today, more or less. And so we can do what we had asked Deputy Chief Searles is that we try to lay them out so that we can anticipate them and put them on the agenda so we can leave the time open for them. As you know, we have been reviewing discharges and pending change from City Council to correct their side of it. We're sticking to that change voted on here. We also, since you're prepping, one of the preps is to drop them on through Lamont, I believe, into the portal so we can view them beforehand and prep ourselves for the day for when you present them. If that's okay with you. Anything else from Tony, Colin?
Are those the TASER reviews that we're going to be reviewing? Are those are going to be made available on the share on the portal, correct?
Yes, that's my understanding. They will be made available on the portal. One of them, I think, if I'm looking at it correctly and understanding kind of the nomenclature that's been used in the past, it should be ready to get put on the portal now or tomorrow or sometime later this week. And the other ones I can get back to you on, but I think at least 2 of the 3 could get there somewhat soon as well.
Thank you.
Lieutenant, those are that you're going to include with that the discharge paperwork as well as at least some of the police reports that are redacted?
Yes, that's again my understanding of how we've been doing it in the past.
Okay,
not here.
Sure, we're all on the same page with what we're going to see up there.
So there will be the redacted videos and the police report. I believe the only thing that I'm not, well, I'll verbally kind of give you a synopsis when we go through it in the meeting.
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. All right. So when it comes to what's already in your hands, it looks like there's enough to keep us busy in terms of not falling behind on them. There's one more thing. We noticed the gap and we talked it and we left. I don't know where Chief Searles is at, but we talked about having a full log of all TASER discharges and uses is the word we were using. That is in police reports. That is, we have a full log of complaints, no matter where they're at, and then some of them come to appeal, and that's when we really get to find out more information. But as they're filed, they're available to us. But the thing that we have not seen, because we weren't checking on them when we voted to change from all unholstering of tasers, we neglected to clarify that we should still keep a log of them, even if we're not considering them before us. And that leaves a small gap there in which there might be discharges or there might be an unaccountability of all taser usage, which is not just the discharges, but there's sometimes in which unholstering or technical issues with them. So if you could find out, I mean, as a homework, this is not asking for today, but to find out where that log might be, we try to search it through Miss Boyd's information, and it wasn't there available. So anyway, just if you don't mind looking for where that is, so then we can have the list, and then we can say, and these went to discharges, and then these went to disposition or review. So we can have
just so I make sure I understand what you're asking for, so we're using the same terminology. When you say uses, we're obviously reviewing all of the discharge where it's
correct.
The taser is discharged, but you also would like a list of all the displays that aren't necessarily reviewed.
Correct.
So display and discharge, that's use altogether.
That's right. Because originally we had all use, including all displays, because when it was unholstered, it was an automatic thing for it to come before our board. But when we changed our practice, we neglected to make sure that information still stayed, even if it was not displayed here. Okay?
So this would be available to you for viewing through the portal?
Yeah.
That's what you'd like to see? Okay.
Yeah. That's where we keep the other logs too.
Okay. Yeah, I will definitely look into that and get back with you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Lieutenant Smyser? All right. So we thank you, and you're welcome to stay through. We have some basics before we get up to other business that often will include. Yeah, and our procedure for appeals, and we'll be switching over to start scheduling them, which will involve you or one of your officers. So
if it's not going to harm anyone, is it okay if I turn the video off? I just sit back and listen?
You're welcome to. That's what some people do. So we're good.
Lieutenant.
Thank you. And before I forget, we have those people in the room, which sometimes, just to clarify, we have 6 people attending. One of them is UPTV, and then on the panelists we have UPT operator, and then everybody else that's I guess the panelist everybody sees, so that everybody knows. Okay. Then unless there's any other question, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which would be approval of the minutes. Just to remind everybody, last time we weren't quite ready, and so we postponed approving a couple of them, and so now it looks like we've got since August. So, but they've been filed for a while. They just needed to make sure that we had everything in them. So I'll either entertain questions or a motion to approve the minutes from August, December, and January.
Unless Colin wants to discuss them, I would move to approve them as a packet, as a joint motion for all 3.
Thank you. What say you, Colin?
Sounds good to me. Yeah, I forget why we moved them from the last time. Was a change that needed to be made to them?
As I recall, in one of the cases there was a correction, and then in the last one, we might not have had quorum. It was a procedural question, and then so the January one just we bumped it.
Decided to.
There wouldn't be any question. Okay. So are you seconding?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. Let's have a vote.
Mr. Allegretti,
Yes.
Mr. Diaz,
Yes.
and Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Then let us go through. It feels like it's been so long. Maybe it hasn't, but in my mind, I missed everybody and getting back into the track as I was reading things. I was like, wow, it's been a while since I had touched more deeply. I guess I see Carla every week, but anyway, let's go to public comments. As is Zoom tradition, if you are attending, raise your hand electronically, and then we'll call out and have you join as we just name you so we can get there. So the first speaker is Tracy Chong. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, good. Ricardo, I have a question for you. You just mentioned that you guys are supposed to review discharges and displays pending approval from City Council. So you guys all know that even though you have voted as a board to stop reviewing displays, and this is because Deputy Chief Schultz kind of encouraged you guys to do so. You do know that your board does not have the power to make this decision. Up to now, City Council has not made any amendments to the City Code or to CPRB ordinance. So why do you think that you have the right to stop doing it right now? Why did you tell Smizer to only give discharges? Why aren't you continuing to review displays? You did mention that you have not got City Council approval to change the ordinance. So please comment on why you think your board has the right to stop making stop doing reviews of the taser displays right now. It is against the law. You guys are not supposed to stop doing it until City Council actually makes changes to the ordinance. So, and not only Ricardo, the rest of you guys know this is wrong. You guys know that it's unlawful for you to stop doing so. Why? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? We do have another opportunity in number 8 on the agenda for anybody else. As far as Ms. Chong's question, I think we'll deal with it in a little bit as we talk about the updates on augmenting changes. So, okay, there being no other people to speak now, let's go ahead with Ms. Boyd's report on item number 5.
Okay, I'm continuing to work on compiling the information for the annual reports for 2019 and 2020. 2019, I've already gotten that information completed. I have a spreadsheet completed for 2019, and I'm currently working on 2020. We had one complaint come in, written, and since there is a pending criminal case and the complainant has expressed the civil action will be taking place, the police have asked that case be suspended until all criminal case matters have been taken care of. So that has been suspended until at such time the statute of limitations ends on that, or if things happen before that. And according to section 1937, suspension of proceedings, they have invoked their right to suspend it. The complaint, we had one complaint come in by phone, and I could not get clarity on what they were actually complaining about. They just made it very general, and they were complaining about the entire police department. And I tried to get specifics, and without irritating or heightening their issues, and I could not get any answers. And eventually, the person hung up on me, and said that I was going to be investigated also. I just asked, for clarifying questions, and I could not get those. So if that person does decide to call back, I will still try to get those clarifying questions, so that I could be able to help them at least begin the process. We will be returning to in-person meetings in April, but since this group doesn't meet until May, your first in-person meeting will be in May, pending, barring any other changes.
Yes. Hoping, yes.
And that's all that I have. It's been quiet as far as any complaints or anything. So I've had an opportunity to try and catch us up with everything else. And then I think you're going to talk about some of the other work that I've been doing in one of your other agenda items.
Just a quick question. I think we've been told, or we've been notified of this already. Do you know the complaint number of the complaint which is suspended due to the potential litigation against the city? Do you know the number on that one?
I believe it would be 2022-01.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Quick, that, and this is probably an answer that is not going to be able to be answered right tonight, but as far as when someone is, we hear, someone is threatening litigation. I think I reviewed that complaint, and it seems like I characterize the threat of litigation as someone just saying, get a lawyer, and it's at the time of the incident or the arrest. Has the board ever been contacted by an attorney or subpoenaed for evidence at all regarding a case? I'm just curious about, and this is more of maybe an issue about the ordinance itself, but the threat of litigation it seems to be easily invoked, and I'm just wondering if we apply it too liberally when someone is just saying, I'm going to sue you. You guys are doing this to me, and then I'm upset. It's as opposed to, having retained an attorney. I'm just curious if the board has ever had requests for video or anything, or of our meetings or something like that to that effect.
Are you asking me or Mr.
Yeah,
Diaz?
Carla or Ricardo or Lamont. If anyone knows, seeking out to the institutional knowledge in this meeting. I'm just curious. I don't want to divert too much from the agenda.
Well, being the oldest, because Carla's been with us a little while, and Lamont has also had a little bit. But Lamont has something to say. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know, Katrina is in the attendees. Can we have her made into a panelist, please?
Yes.
Kendall is here.
And I can just say in my short time, I have not had any requests, and I can't answer the question fully tonight because I would have to do some checking. But it's not just that the invocation of civil litigation, but it's also there is a criminal case currently.
Right. No, and I get that to a certain extent as well. I was talking specifically about an actual civil case as opposed to a criminal case. The criminal cases are much more like here, I would imagine, or I've seen.
Tony, you're fading in and out sometimes, just for your knowledge.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
So from my side, thank you, Lamont. Welcome, Katrina. It's good to reconnect, and we're sorry for your loss. It's always a difficult time as to when to come back. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think, Tony, one of the questions, there is some fuzziness as to when to invoke threat of litigation. We did have a question about 2 years ago as to whether it was a threat that was mentioned as is I'm going to sue you versus going further than that. Can we put that on our list of redefinitions as we get to bucket 2.5?
Yeah, I mean, I have it there. I just thought I would ask if anyone knew, since we were all here at the meeting.
Yeah.
And I think I agree it needs some clarification. I was just curious if anyone had remembered that it had happened.
Yeah.
It would seem like it would stick out in someone's.
Yeah, there hasn't been, but somewhat related to that, Carla and I talked about having a better, having a place to be able to report where we are. Our log presently is behind public's eye in the portal. And so one of the preparations we're doing for 2019 and 2020 report is to be able to account for every line on our log, so that those that make it further have a full history and obviously the documentation. And so we thought it a good thing that, this is pending suggestions of what we're going to send to council. The fact that we actually don't have many places except the video recordings of how to communicate with the public in a more systematic manner. So as we did the other report of several years altogether, we wanted to catch up to say this is all we know about those years. And so we, as Colin and I were putting down together, we went back and put also board members that had participated, throughout those years and the number of cases, and as much information as we had that mostly Scotty had put together, but so that we would not leave a gap on information. As you know, I came on as chair a relatively short time ago, given how long this process has been going on. And one of my goals has been just to make sure that we're fully documented. So the previous report that was released includes all those years with all the information we have. The 2019 report is going to have the lines of all those cases and then where we had a disposition. And the 2020 report will also be as full as we can have of both log dispositions and hopefully reference numbers so that we can have a better cross triangulation of everything that's come before this board. And at that point, I'll retire and you guys can take it wherever you like. But I just want to make sure that during my time, I was not quite aware of how things were kept track of. I was a board member, I showed up and I shared my view at the time. But I think in the paperwork, we also lost a lot of people. And actually, I just saw Alex today in Springfield, our previous HR person. But anyway, so that's what we're working on. Any questions, comments on that one, on Carla's report? Okay, there's one more comment I want to make now on the case that was done by phone. One of the things that we felt, not only to make consistent, but to be more open to to bring things before us, is Carla and I discussed the possibility, and then we ran it through and said there doesn't seem to be anything barring from this, is for her to encourage people to file a formal report in writing, but recognizing that written form is not necessarily everybody's bag, capability, preference, that there was nothing barring us from her taking a report or starting a report through a phone call. That is verbally or any, before anything else on. So I empathize with you that not everybody's gonna file, and that in this particular case, as you narrated it, I felt for you because we want to be able to help people file, and the phone line being open to begin. The procedure that we started to put forward, and it'll come back when we talk procedures, is that she would receive the call, take down the notes, and then fill out a form as much as possible, then have the person calling look at it and finalize and submit the report, but they wouldn't have the burden of starting that written form, especially because in this particular case, somebody called, they were obviously angry because they called. They got channeled to the right person. It didn't have to go to the police department where, quote, somebody might think that they're not going to listen anyway, especially if they're mad at them. So Carla is already taking such reports when it comes to the other side of her job, the human relations side. And so we figured, why not just open ourselves to that? It solves also the problem of somebody being barred from a written form coming from a second language. Because if they call her, she would, if they didn't fill out the form, but they wanted to complain, they start it with her, and then we'd figure out how to then provide language access. So anyway, I don't know why we haven't thought of that before in the last couple of years that we talked about it. Member McGiddy, the teacher that was a member of a board, she really wanted to put the form in other languages. But I think in this case, we are trying to cover that openness, and then we can decide in other ways if we want to open up a way for people to file. So thank you, Carla, for your report. If there's no other questions or comments on her report, we can move on to unfinished business. Okay, then we'll do so. We are now on 6 on the agenda. Updates, well, we did B, so we're only going to have one item left here on 6A. Well, actually, we can talk about Ms. Chong's question on 6B. So let's do 6A first and make sure we have that. Mr. Allegrady, you've been working some on that. We didn't quite write it the same way, but it's just a report. It's just an update. So you want to let us know where we are on that procedures manual?
Sure. Yeah, I'm continuing to work on it. I do need to reach out to Katrina so we can sit down and talk about it as well. I know that's not been possible lately, but I continue to work on it. And I hope to have something to present, hopefully by next meeting, or at least to have something sent out for people to review and have it by next meeting.
Thank you. You're kind of, well, we are following procedure in that you cannot send it for all of us to comment at once.
Right.
Or you have to go one by one.
Yeah, I didn't mean it as I meant to have something for people to look at. Comments would have to come back individually.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah.
No. Just to clarify, because it does apply to the other thing that we discussed. We've been meeting one-on-one, Tony and I, and then at one point we also met with Ms. Boyd because there are suggestions for procedures from us as a board that we'll approve, and then there are suggestions for procedure changes from the city, and so she's putting down hers too, and then eventually the procedure will be for us to both present and then have them come back. Procedures, of course, are based on what the ordinance allows and where we are with also the changes that we'd like at that level. And since we know what the numbers are when it comes to TASER reports, the question does come up, what about procedures as to TASERs? We have also in this procedures review know that the TASER ordinance also needs updating. It was written at a time when TASERs had cameras on them, and it was written at a time when every discharge, every display, and I recall when we wrote that ordinance together that the displays were important because that was a camera and a sound recording that came with the TASER. So the rule, given the circumstance, was by opening the TASER, by unholstering it, they had to turn it on, and that turning it on turned on also an audio and a video recording. So during the first couple of years, that's what we had. We had TASER unholstering and the camera recording, but because it was a display, it was not pointed at a person, then the camera was pointing down, and the audio that was gleaned from that was also from the position of a TASER on the side of the officer. And so while that was inconvenient, it gave us audio, and I recall considering a couple of cases in which that's all we had, an audio that verified what was in the reports, and it was better than nothing, is my point there. With the advent, the push, and then the eventually purchase, of the police with having body cameras, then now we had, so a correction, the TASER camera and audio was not the only thing if there was a squad car, because the squad car already had a camera and an audio built in. So in the triangulation, we had more info. It served as a more info. When cameras were approved for each officer to be wearing, now for every case we have, if there's a squad car, we had that audio and video, and then every officer there, it was required that they turned in their audio and video at in front of us. So that was then. So what do we need the video for and the TASERs anymore? The second part that I think that came up, I think that we should all understand. I was there for the vote for this change. I remember that there was discussion. But the second reason that this came up is that when we wrote the ordinance, we said we would consider all cases for 1 year, if I recall correctly. And therefore then we considered everything because we needed to iron out the procedures. We didn't know. We did a hypothetical on what are TASERs going to be like. I mean, there was quite a back and forth in the community about, are TASERs worth it? And as they were approved, and Scotty and I were there to help write the ordinance and to try to cover everything in the report, have a simple report, but one that was comprehensive enough for us to know what happened. The proposal was made that we had overstayed our year. I think it was our second, third year of looking at all these charges. There weren't that many, especially at the beginning, that it was taking up too much time, and it wasn't helping us anything in any way to be looking at displays where it was pointing down and nothing happened. It was unholstered, and it didn't escalate to a discharge. So the proposal was made then to change to discharges only in an effort to save time and to keep with the important cases. And that's why that was changed. It was voted upon. I now can see and take responsibility for not negotiating. I mean, council was aware of this change, but they didn't do anything about it. As you know, there's been they've talked about changes, but when we said to them we want to propose changes one by one, they basically said to us, come back when you want to make substantive changes in a bundle. And so that's where that change came in. And for me, that's also where we have the perspective of what we're calling bucket 2.5, which is not structural changes necessarily of what the police review board looks like, because the other option was investigative, and we rehashed that in other recordings and other meetings. But to bundle up changes to our procedures, given what we've learned, and then changes to the ordinance. And we've been working on that list with Ms. Boyd, so that we can have a bundle, just like they ask, and then they can act all at once. Ultimately, most of these changes are, well, not only are the changes to an ordinance, both in definition and detail, we've had to deal with a lot of ambiguities when we've handled appeals. But darn it, there are times at which they also need to leave us the ambiguity to act, so that we don't have to be going back and asking for little changes as we go along. So anyway, that list we're calling bucket 2.5, in that there are changes to the ordinance that we're requesting, and they will change the way we operationalize. Because we know their process takes so long, the next decision was then to change our procedures within the ordinance as much as we need to be able to function effectively. And then when they change the ordinance, then we can adjust them to the ordinance. But we need to act. We need to keep moving. We have work to do, and not that gives us license to change the ordinance. That's their prerogative. But in the meantime, we have a charge of handling cases and being as expeditious as possible. And were it not for the virus, I think we would have done a better job of doing that. So that's my update post procedures manual. But of course, this is all entangled into being able to send changes up. And that's where we're affected on TASER, both reports, displays, and then how they move things up for us. So comments are welcome. That was the long spiel, but I wanted to make sure that we have it on record. Colin, we haven't come back to you directly on this because these two lists are being moved. One, Tony, and then the other one with Ms. Boyd, but they're not finalized. And I think, as far as we understand, everything in draft should still be kept in draft until it needs to be considered by the body. But individually, you'll have them to consider, and at that point, then they may get made public. Okay. All right. So that takes care then of item number 6. That's the unfinished business we had. We'll move on to number 7, new business. And this is a subject that I put on the agenda. As the call for items comes up, we can each put new items. And so in this case, we're in March, and we have a lot of appeals that need to be taken care of. They need to be addressed. Virus and all, it slowed things down. I became chair. We inherited not only the TASER change, but a lot of cases that had been approved or moved on to appeals. And so we started on them. We have made decisions on almost a dozen of them, but we have a lot more to go. And so we've started discussing, and I want to bring up to very public discussion as to, so what do we do with the cases, given that now we've had a good reason in December to postpone, but we're in March and we still haven't handled any more cases. This is both for, I think this involves everybody, including Lieutenant Smizer. We don't have instruction in ordinance or in procedures. We already know and admit that we are late on handling expeditiously. With all the changes both in personnel and in board members, and add the virus, we have fallen behind, and then each case takes sometimes a couple of hours. So we have been crawling through them, but now we went into a hiatus. And so my question is, if we don't have more instruction, we need to start clearing them and decide on a rule that says this is the limit of how long they're going to be on a docket as appeals, and as for the benefit of those involved. We've now changed police chiefs. Whatever we say, actually, maybe it makes it free for us to say anything we want about Chief Seraphin because he's moved on. But of course, that wouldn't be fair either. So we just need to. I'm open to suggestions. We don't have to decide, but I do want to hear your thoughts on to how do we move past this point.
I'll start, Ricardo. I've looked at the section of the ordinance that I think applies, and that would be 19-36D. And the board, we have the authority to discontinue the review of a complaint. It seems like it's for only one specific reason, at least that's my reading of it. If the complainant fails to attend the hearing without good cause. So it would seem that we would have to schedule a hearing, and then if the complainant failed to appear, if they just failed to appear, no reason given, I think the board could vote to discontinue. And if they did give a reason, I think the board would be able to then vote and find if that was good cause or not. That would seem to be the only way forward based on the constraints of the ordinance. It would be, obviously that would require a lot of prep to set a hearing and wait to see if if the complaint is going to show, and it could be wasting people's time. I guess so. That seems to could be a waste of resources. However, if there was, unless we had some contact with the individual beforehand, either way, that they didn't want to proceed or they did, but they were asking for a delay, and we'd have to, I think, hear that the reason for the delay and then vote on it. I would imagine. And that's what it seems like we'd have to do, which is not exactly the best going forward. I think this is one of the 2.5 bucket areas, at least giving us some more leeway to, if we needed to, discontinue an appeal without having to marshal all the resources to go to a hearing, only to have someone not appear and then take a vote. At least that's how I see it. But again, that's just my opinion.
That's your opinion, but you cited what we have from the ordinance.
Well, that's what we have. I'd like to see a little more flexibility if things were getting dragged out and delayed without good cause. I guess it's a question of when do we get to make the call on good cause. It seems like we'd have, based on the ordinance, the only reason for lack of interest is if they fail to attend the hearing. So we would have to set the hearing first before we make that determination. So if we were able to do that before setting a hearing, that would be, I think, a better use of everyone's time.
Good. Well, FYI, and to make it clear, to set hearings, we usually need, I was looking at what we did the last few times. We end up having a 2-month leeway for a case to be put forward as a hearing for an appeal, because we have to look at everybody's schedule, and we have to look for availability of the building, and then we invite, we notify the person appealing, and then we also get our I forget now, the arbitrator in the middle.
Our hearing officer.
Our hearing officers, thank you. And so if we were even to decide today on move on the appeals, it's going to be a little while before we did. One of the reasons we changed our schedule of meetings was so that 1 month we had meeting, the next month we would spend some time on appeals. And then we had a meeting, and then we spent on appeals. And so right now, if we start moving on appeals, it takes the person, if we had contact, no, we have contact with them. We send them a letter. There's a procedure spelled out, X number of days. They receive a certified letter. They when you receive a certified letter, whether you pick it up or not, you're bound by the fact that you got sent it. I just received one for something else, and I was like, it's not an easy thing to ignore. And it is probably our best option procedurally to keep on doing that and to notify. We did. There are certain things that you get notified that case is going to come before us. While we're not a court of law, we need to keep moving as if we were in this particular case. And so I don't mind if we follow that procedure and said we just need to handle X number of cases per hearing or per date or
So Ricardo, are you saying once that certified letter gets sent out to the individual, we've set a date and it's in the letter, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And then do we ask for confirmation from them, or is it?
No, we don't. I have actually personally done that because I reach out to the individual to make sure, because I don't, especially when the room, everything has been lined up, enough of you have said, yes, we're available. I try to reach out and say, are you coming?
Yeah.
Right? Because even if it's informal, it's, for me, a good idea to not waste everybody's time.
Right.
That's right.
I'm wondering if we include something in the letter that requires the person to respond. Are you attending? Yes or no. If you're not, please state your reason, and then perhaps I guess it's a question of when would the board hear that reason, because it would have to be before the hearing date to decide is that good cause or not. Which
necessitates a quorum of this board to be able to vote on whether that's a good reason or not. So, and that person presenting it might as well show up to that, even to explain themselves why they can't be at a hearing, but they're already at a hearing for their reason. So it's circular. Up to now, there hasn't been a confirmation required. I don't know whether it is. We have, for good reason, I think, personally, put ourselves on hold with them. It's just that the defining good reason is right now not spelled out, but I think we all agreed that this hiatus was for good reason. It's just that we don't have an end date for it, and perhaps we should have said that. But how do you do that? Especially when it's a good reason. Good enough reason to stop, but it's not like a stop sign. You wait until your car is stopped fully and then you can move on. We don't know what that is. So
it seems like in the interest of the complainant that we have to, at some point, nudge us moving forward, right? I don't think we can. You're right. We can't just sit here. So it seems like we should try to set a date and begin the process again, right? At some point in a week or a month, we begin the process again of starting that conversation, and we try to set a date with that person sort of in that communication. And I don't, because like Tony said, what else can we do? We don't really have any other options, right?
And maybe there could be a mechanism if we don't hear from them and then the board votes we're going to discontinue the appeal. we can, and maybe we can afford some, some sort of movement by the complainant to reinstate, and then we hear the good cause. I mean, maybe I wasn't able to reach out to you because, I was involved in a car accident and I'd been incapacitated. And it wasn't pressing on, at the time. I think that scenario may be a case where we would reinstate it.
Let's think of that. Let me take a technical pause to bring Katrina back in. She was back on attendees. And so I need Ibrahim, if you can promote Katrina back to, thank you very much. It happens to us when somebody drops off or whatever service. Mine dropped off yesterday, the day before, for an hour or so. No internet in the whole house, and work was hiatus. So one of the things that impacts this is I don't like to set rules when there are cases before us. I like to set policy once the cases have taught us something about what the policy should be. But in this case, the cases going forward are the ones that we're holding and that we need to make policy for. Because otherwise we will sit here and stand still and not move on the hearings. And if we're behind, seriously behind on dealing with them, just sitting here will make it even worse because of details, because maybe our paperwork won't get lost, but our recall and impetus certainly slows down. So, as I heard you, Tony, as we muddle through this, we have to decide to move forward. And as I heard you, Colin, then why don't we just set a date for the next ones? And then we can decide by setting the hearing date with the complainant showing up. Giving them an opportunity to say, I can't come, is maybe should be part of the letter, but it will still necessitate for us to meet on that date that we said and we announced by the 10-day certified letter announcement, that we still meet that day and consider what that response might have been in writing. If the complainant couldn't show up and therefore cannot show up to defend their reason for that day, it seems to me that the only thing we have is that we could make an exception or something, but the ordinance right now tells us that for good reason, and that it would have to be decided at that hearing. And we either have a hearing with a full case because everybody showed up, or we have a hearing on what a good reason might have been. And if we decide that it's not a good reason, then we process the case anyway.
I should also clarify that this is very important that we give this set of appeals special consideration, because we delayed it so long because of the pandemic, because of the board changes, that a huge portion of the delay is just not the complainant's fault. It's just a huge delay. So I do want to be careful. As much as I did say earlier that we need to move forward, we also need to be careful that we don't spring something given the scale of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
Just to be careful, given it deserves some special consideration, is all I'm saying.
Ricardo, if we found there wasn't good cause, the board would vote to end any further review of the appeal. It would be dismissed or stricken. If we found that there was good cause, then I think we would reset the date. So I guess the problem is we set a hearing date. We have city and ourselves reviewing everything, knowing that there's and we have maybe a written response from the appellant why he can't show, or why she can't show, or they can't show, and then it's, if we find there's good cause, then we may have wasted everyone's time getting ready to go, getting all dressed up to go to the show without, then your babysitter cancels. So
There's
that's,
good cause. We should delay it. We shouldn't have the hearing, right? We should postpone it and then explain ourselves in the next CPRB meeting, right? Because like you said, we don't want to waste city staff time. We don't want to drag them along for that. Just to vote to postpone it, that sounds bad for our relationship with the city staff.
So, but see,
that's just what the city's set up. So it's not necessarily, this is the city council is, enacted this ordinance. So we're trying to follow what they've enacted. So it's not, we're not wasting anyone's time. We're following the ordinance.
Right, but they're not the ones who have to set aside time for the appeal hearing. It's the hearing officer. It's the city administrator.
Yeah.
It's
right.
Question.
And actually, let's give a sense to Carla to also give us her opinion, because it affects her, and the scheduling certainly affects her, but it's also her work time. Go ahead, Carla.
I was just going to ask if I could make a suggestion of, in the letter goes out beyond the 10 days. What if we added in there an additional 5 for the appellant to respond? And do you have to be live? Do we have to be in a meeting for you to vote on whether or not yes or no we move forward? We could get that communication done prior to us showing up at a meeting, and the meeting could be tentative until further notice. But if the person says, yes, I can be there, then we move forward. If not, then you guys get the information and you get to decide, are we moving forward or not?
So the only decision offline would be, are we moving forward or
Are
not?
we moving forward or not? Rather
We're not
than
discussing
bringing
the
everybody
case.
in for a meeting and decide at that meeting, and then we have to reschedule that meeting. That puts it out another minimum 10 days, but it will probably be a minimum 15 because we'd have to reschedule everyone. Just a thought.
Can we vote like that? Without, don't we need, because we'd basically be voting without a quorum, not in a meeting.
Well, if we set up the rule that if the person responds and says yes, then the tentative meeting becomes real. The tentative hearing is not real.
That they're coming. Yeah, right.
That's right. If the person says, no, I cannot come, then we need to set up a procedure that both moves us forward and is fair to a complainant. So giving them 5 extra days to respond gives us an opportunity to make it real. And in the case that they say, I cannot come, then what we need to do is decide, what do we do with that case?
And I can find out how voting can go, because I understand Mr. Allegretti's concerns. I can find out that answer.
I guess, I'm sorry, Carla, finish it. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, I think you're concerned about not being able to vote in public. Most of the voting happens in public, and so I can find out how it could happen. And if it can't, then it can't.
Right. I'm just wondering if the person responds, yes, I can make it, no problem. We're all full steam ahead. If they say no, just no, and they don't give a reason, I think we still proceed with the hearing date. I think at that point, the vote would almost have to be, we're going to discontinue the appeal because they haven't given us any good cause. And then the last option where they say no, they give a reason. If it's good cause, then we would have delayed the meeting anyway, the hearing anyway. And if they vote no, or if we vote no, there was no good cause, the hearing doesn't happen and it stops. So really, once there's a no, I can't make it, the hearing is either going to never happen or it's going to be delayed. So I guess we're really not, the more I think about it, we're not wasting anybody's time. We just know at that point, once we have the response from the appellant, we know if they say no, nothing, the hearing is not actually going to take place that day, but it's either going to be dismissed or it's going to be delayed. So maybe it's not a waste of resources if we do it that way.
Okay, can I ask,
Yes,
what does the
notice.
court do when somebody doesn't show?
Well, I mean, a number of things can happen, and it depends on, like, you know, it depends on a lot of things, what stage they're at in proceedings. I mean, typically, you have somebody showing up for them. You know, you have an attorney showing up for either side, and they'll make representations. It's rare for a case to just stop in its tracks. But I mean, there can be some substantive findings that that a court can find if someone fails to appear. I mean, your case can be dismissed if you fail to show up. You can be, sentenced to jail if you fail to show up at a sentencing hearing. But if you just, which is, I guess, I mean, our equivalent would be a hearing, a trial. I mean, if you fail to show up, it can proceed without you. It can be delayed. I don't, in a civil aspect, I imagine it could be dismissed. But so
These are generally civil matters. If I have a court date next week on, I don't know how much to specify in a civil matter, I get notified that I'm supposed to show, and I don't show, can there be a judgment against me? If somebody was claiming that I owed them money?
If you were the defendant, yes. That can happen.
Yeah.
There's a period of time after that you can move to set aside, because that would be a default. It's not, no one's heard the case on the merits, so you can kind of resurrect yourself, so to speak, if you just missed a court date. But
it's a big risk. If I get a notification, if I don't show, I feel like I may lose this if I don't show. So I better make arrangements in my work and everything else so that I can show, because otherwise I stand to have judgment against me.
Right. And we're consulting with the appellant about the date that we're going to set, or correct?
Well, we're notifying them. We usually
just pick a date.
That's right. And because they're on an order right now, when that is coming up is pretty much public, in that we try to say we will be treating these cases on such and such a date.
Right.
And we notify everybody involved that they show. And if
I mean, I think I like Carla's suggestion that we add a 5-day response to the letter. And then if they say no, it's either going to get tossed or we're going to delay it. And so it better be a good reason. It's got to be good cause. I mean, it's not just, I think the board has a good feeling for what that would be.
So can we say if we adopt, a 5-day response period, it takes away that, it gives us a better sense of whatever response we get, that we can go ahead and proceed with the appeal, with the appeals hearing. In the I can't be there answer, they should explain. Maybe the letter should say 5 days. Please respond if your answer is no. Detail why you cannot be there, and we would still have, because it depends how many people are at the hearing. There are hearings from different people there. Then one of the things that we can do is show up, still have a hearing, and the hearing becomes the reason that, to consider whether the reason they said they couldn't show was good enough. Or not good enough, but good reason, I think was the language.
Right. I mean, I guess we could go that route and proceed without the person being present. Then they don't have the ability to present their side of the story. I guess maybe the other thing, though, if someone says, yes, I'm coming, and then they fail to show up, and then we find out later it's because they were involved in a car accident, then I guess we have to give some exception on the other end of a of dismissal to let them move to set aside our dismissal for something like that. But I mean, I would think that'd be pretty rare.
Yeah, Lemon, do you have some thinking? Please share it.
I just have a question. In accordance with Section 1932 of the CPRB ordinance, Section B, have we, the CPRB, provided not only the complainant but the police department with a written extension request and received a response? For example, I know that there are a great number of appeals, but just according with the ordinance, if we're going to go beyond the 45-day to hear the appeals after the initial, we have to give a written, we have to provide that in writing for the extension. So my concern is if we have not provided, or one was never provided, certainly I think a lot of lenience was given in accordance with COVID, but if they haven't provided, and as I look here, there isn't a set that we have to get to the complainant, it would seem as though that you all sit in a position to decide if the appeals are still to be heard or not. Because there's a set time for the initial hearing that must happen according to the ordinance. And then there's a set number of days and beyond that a written notice must be given. Now, this is all according to the ordinance. So this is what governs us in COVID or out of COVID. So I just didn't know if those things have been done or if this is a point where we need to table, since we meet every other month, and check these complaints, see what type of requests for extensions have been made, and then gather our resources from there for what actual appeals cases are eligible to be heard moving forward. Just a question, just a point.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. We want to be as faithful as we can to the letter of the law and see if if our suggestions, fit that.
That's a delay, though. I mean, and it's 45 working days, so that's like 9 weeks.
Correct, but according to the ordinance, if you're going to be scheduled beyond that, you have to give written notice. We can't
to
the police department and to the
complaint, right?
We can't just vote to table it within a meeting. Written notice must be given according to the ordinance. And so then if written notice hasn't been given over a certain number of these ordinances, are they still eligible to be heard as appellate cases at this point?
Well, Lamond, I think that what you're putting forward to us really complicates it for us, because if we did not give written notice of extension to the complainants and to the police department, then we have failed as a board. Or let's give it to staff. The staff has failed to notify. No, I mean, it's obviously we're digging in and catching ourselves even further in because without having given a request for extension, then these cases wouldn't be dismissed because it wasn't their fault. it is our fault for not having notified them that we need more time to deal with them.
No, I didn't bring this up as a point to point fingers.
No, no, of course not. And then I'm kidding. I'm just saying, how do you follow that fairly? Because I think Collins was also pointing that out.
I suggested that. That's why I said that you table this, because we now meet every other month. It gives you time to go back and review the cases that have been addressed according to the ordinance, the ones that haven't, and how you move forward. It gives you time to meet, not more than two, but allows you to be in contact with the police department. It allows you to be in contact with the complainant. It also allows you to review the records. Many of these appeals and records supersede many of us who are here tonight. So that's why I say I don't believe it is a point of blame or conjecture. And I got the joke, but for the business at hand, we may have people who may not have gotten the joke. So I'm just saying,
Good.
in moving forward, all these points are very important. But if we're going to hold to the ordinance, it seems as though it might be safest to table it at this point and then look to see how many of the appeals cases that are waiting are in compliance with the ordinance. If they are, then we know we can move forward. If they're not, then who do we talk to or who do we speak with, whether it's the city administrator, the HERER, the mayor, whoever it is, where do we then take our lead from there? That way, especially from a learning mechanism for some of our new members or for those of us who haven't looked at this point of the ordinance, dealing with cases that were delayed in part due to COVID, but also in part due to a great number of them that were submitted in a short amount of time. What can we do moving forward? I don't know. That's a question that can be answered here. So I was just thinking it might give you an opportunity to have a plan set up by where we table the discussion and we say, let's look at the cases, let's look at the documentation and see who we need to talk to moving forward. But certainly just a suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And it's taken in that spirit of let's be as careful as possible. As Colin said, we want to be erring on the side of benevolence rather than just moving forward. I believe, though, and I have probably seen every one of these cases, that I don't know. What I don't know is the documentation that we have for each case, and would it meet notification and whatever else. But having seen those cases, when I remember we put them forward, I was not yet chair. They were approved to move forward as appeals, even when there was very scarce documentation. At the time, it seemed like a good idea for accountability. That is, everything that was submitted to the board needed to have a number and put forward. It would be contradictory for us to now look at them and to say they're not moving forward anymore. So I would rather that at minimum we start scheduling them with an addendum with the 5-day or something that we can finish up, and still do as suggested, that we look at them clean slate, if you will, analyze them as to what do we have, what was completed in them, so that we can bring back that report. Given the amount of time it takes to schedule us, I think we will probably end up having an April hearing at most, at the earliest, and then we'll be at May, close to May's meeting, and at May's meeting we can, whatever. If we have one appeal before May, that would be great. And there's still 30 others to be considered as a decision point for our meeting in May. I hope I didn't convolute that.
I just have a question. Are you
Go ahead.
suggesting that we schedule one case at a time?
No, I think the last time that we had a hearing, we had 2 or 3 that still needed to be, that got left pending because we didn't have time that night. So I would suggest that we just go with those leftovers on that
Those
day.
three.
Yeah, and put them forward as doing them, so that we have some. It's like I'd rather have parallel tracks of dealing with them as much as we were doing before, and then trying to resolve the question, because there's still plenty that the question would apply to. Does that seem sensible? Okay, I see assent. So, anybody stop me if I say this wrong. So, I hereby request that Ms. Boyd seek a hearing session, that you include the last 2 or 3 that were left pending at the very last hearing night, that those become then, if we process them just as before, that's request number 1. That the letter notifying the complainant also include a period of an extra 5 days for them to respond, to confirm that they're going to be there that night, and that if they answer yes, we just go ahead with that, and if they answer no, that they state their reason why they cannot be there. That will give us evidence without vote of just where the the complainant is in their own position. And then we hold the hearing night, and at that point we decide what else to do with if there is a no answer. We may actually, we've learned to hypothesize, given that the last couple of years there have been so many changes as we go along, and we have found ourselves without instruction. But hopefully it goes the other way. We send a letter, the complainant says yes, and we hold a hearing, and we're moving on, which is the intent of this discussion. That would be the best possible outcome. We just keep on going. I remember early last year, as I became chair, one of my commitments was we need to go through every appeal as long as it takes. It's only fair that the appeals get put forward. So I have resisted the ganas, the inciting to skip any line, anything. Just go through them one by one as long as it takes, and kill columns late night. But that's okay, because we committed to this and we'll go through. I've tried to appease it by having a limited number of hours that I ask everyone to commit to. All right. Did I ask the 2 things correctly, Carla? Or clear enough? And we're all 4 members. I think we lost Katrina again. She's not on the waiting list right now.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have it.
Thank you very much. Since we're assenting and there's 3 of us, we are able to move forward. Let me deal with the last suggestion that I think is a good one, that at minimum ought to be considered between 2 of us, and that is to sit down with the cases and look to see what we have in each one as far as documentation, so that we can present it to the board at the next meeting. Okay? If that's okay, I don't think we need a vote. It's an instruction within our prerogative. I don't mind volunteering. I like to fill in the gap, but if two of you volunteer, it gives me the room to then be mediator. If no one volunteers, I end up with a package at my suggestion, because I'm the one that suggested, and you end up with the work if you open mouth and insert foot. But I'd like to have a little bit of company as we go through these things, because otherwise I'm doing them, and I usually do them under my meeting with Carla to make sure that someone else is checking in with me. So, any volunteers?
And now this is to check our documentation for, is this for the appeals that we're looking at?
That's right, for the appeals that are pending besides the 3 that are being scheduled.
Okay, yeah, no, I've started trying to put together some of the documentation for what we have already.
Okay, excellent.
Organize it in a way that I can sort of see everything.
Yeah.
So I'd be available to help.
Thank you. I started doing the same, so we can merge information. I think Carla probably also has. So, all right. Katrina and other Tony are not here to help volunteer. If one of them volunteers, I'll leave it up to Column and one of them. If not, I'll be your partner, Column, and we can get it done by the next meeting. Okay? All right. Thank you for indulging in this. We just need to move forward, and I appreciate everybody's time and commitment to doing this as openly and as fairly as possible. So if it's okay with you, we'll close this discussion with those 2 instructions, and then with a subcommittee, essentially, with Column and one of the others, or me. So that would finish out then agenda item number 7. Let's go to public input 8 on the agenda before we go on to announcements and comments from the board. So now it's time for people in the virtual room. We have several people in the public. If you don't mind raising your hand to give comment, while hard, we do appreciate any comments, including disfavorable ones, because we need to hear your voice too. So if you'll raise your hand, and the time will be yours. Okay, if you don't want to do a comment verbally today, feel welcome to write us a note, whether individually as a group. We should keep on encouraging people to be involved. In fact, the other thing I was thinking of recently is I need to call on the previous chairs and see what they think about this situation. Okay, so we'll close the public comment section, but we have Lamont. I don't know if that's your previous hand or if it's the new hand. So go ahead, Mr. Peppers.
I just wanted to share, I just received a text from Katrina. She was having connection issues. She wanted the board to be aware. It was kicking her out. She wasn't able to get back into this meeting, but plans to attend the next meeting.
Thank you very much. That helps. I have learned I need to try to keep, I don't open email during virtual meetings because it just becomes, something will distract me. If there's mails for this, text me or text somebody else, just like you just did to Mr. Peppers. So thank you.
Does she know it's in person next time? Maybe we should just make sure.
That'll be included in the documents I send out. I'll make sure all boards, certain members have that, sir.
Okay, thanks, Lamont.
All right. Thanks for the clarification, everybody. Now we move on to item number 9, which is just, we try to put here by line so that we all have a sense of, or we have carved out space for things that you might have, both as board members, your own announcements. I like to point out the 9A, B, C, D, E. We do have still the opportunity for 2 new members of residents to become members of this board. Please apply through the mayor's site. And then time commitment, like I said, meetings every other month, which generally yield the off month to be done for appeals or committee meetings as we're doing. We just did appeals and suggestings for dealing with them quicker, so we'll put that in unfinished business for the next agenda because that's the item we're doing, and then we can drop it from 9. We are meeting then on the 25th at 6. Remind me, Katrina had requested 6:30, and there was a rule by which we couldn't yet approve 6:30. Somebody remind me?
I thought the suggestion was for 6 p.m.
Oh, because we were meeting at
Because
5:30.
because we were meeting at 5:30.
Oh, good. All right. Thank you. Well, good. That makes me feel better. Not neglecting her. So then we've done the 9E because the next meeting is at 6 p.m. and it's in person, and that was very nice cleanup. It's written up, and that should serve as notification for everybody. Okay, 9A, announcements, comments from other members of the board.
I guess I'd just make a comment regarding the taser hearings. I think, if this council is upset or somehow finds that what we're doing is improper, we would seek their comment on how to solve it. I don't think we're necessarily violating the ordinance. We are still reviewing them. We're keeping track of them. And I guess just to clarify, the use or the display of a taser is not being lost or not being reviewed. It's being kept in a log. And really the ones that we've seen and the taser hearings that we've had have all been discharges. So I think Ricardo is right in that we're focusing on the more important ones. So, I think when the ordinance was taken up, and it really is included in the ordinance about the CPRB giving recommendations about how to proceed with it, because it was such a new technology at the time. It had just been displayed. So I would disagree with the public comments regarding that what we're doing here is somehow contrary to the ordinance. I think we're keeping focus on the important taser uses or discharges, I should say, and still keeping an eye on displays if that were to become a pattern in practice that we would be concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. All right, Colin, there doesn't have to be anything else. I just want to point out one thing that you guys, the public and everybody should do. ARPA funds, the American Recovery Act, every government entity across the U.S. got a certain amount of money to stimulate the economy. I'll just leave it short. Basically, everybody got a bunch of free money, not on their budgets, is the way I see it, federal money. It's all our taxes anyway, but as it comes back, the county has already allocated its first year monies. Champaign is probably getting ready to put out what it is that they decided to do with the money. I saw their survey, and police, it was community violence dash police that a lot of comments were made in their survey did. Our city is also putting out a survey to see what would we do with, I forget how much that our city's doing, 12.9 million. $13 million that our city is receiving from the feds that was not in our regular budget. And I urge everyone to just take the survey. It's pretty easy. It's a lot of check marks. There's some demographics, but you don't have to put them in. I believe in hearing the public. It's easy to isolate yourself with the gobs of information and time-consuming things that you do as a public official, as we are. But especially city council, $13 million is not chump change. In a city as small as ours, a lot of good things could happen. And so I think that that our leaders need public comment. I know that I have put forward with the county that we should spend a certain amount on the people that we don't normally hear from, and that is the foreign-born. In the city of Urbana, it's a fifth of our population that they wouldn't normally be involved civically. This is an opportunity for them to voice what they might think and be included in the process. But everybody, every resident of Urbana ought to put in a vote. or some thinking. So I invite everybody to sign up. Public survey, ARPA funds, Urbana. If you put it in Google, it'll come up. And I don't know when the closing date is, but the sooner the better, because there's $13 million in their hands that they want to spend in one way or the other, and that's not a good situation for anybody without public input. So anyway, that's my final comment. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony Allegretti.
I think we need a second column.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much, and let's vote, and we'll see you at the next time. Thank you very much for everybody for your night.
Mr. Allegretti,
Yes, and good night, everyone.
Mr. Diaz,
Yes, good night.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you are adjourned.
Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.